That's why this is a big deal. So, the real debate that is going on here is shaping up like this. There are two groups of people, and they are standing in one of two lines. They are either lining up with the grateful and the accountable, or they are lining up with the ungrateful and the unaccountable. It's the grateful and the accountable that say, I know it's odd and I know it might sound funny, but I still give God credit for all the great things that have happened to me in my life and all of the great things that are happening in this nation. And I do feel like I am personally and nationally accountable to God. But in sharp contrast, there are the ungrateful and the unaccountable. And they're the group that says, no, I'm not grateful to God. I'm not sure who I'm grateful to. I guess I'm grateful to myself. And honestly, as bad as it sounds, I'm not accountable to God or anybody else. Now, church, hear me. It's this very attitude that has taken down politician after politician after politician after politician, because in their hearts, they don't feel accountable to God. And when you're not accountable to God, you really can't be accountable to the American people. Because the American people represent a nation whose national conscience was birthed under God. Church, this is the rub that we feel today. This is the real debate that's going on today. So here's my point. You take God out of the accountability system and you end up with no accountability. All we have to do is look at our own lives to see that this is true. How did you live when you felt no accountability to God? Que sera, sera. It's pretty much anything goes. But then in contrast, think about how you changed when you realized that one day you would stand before God and give an account. Big change. So the real issue, the real debate for our country is this. Are we going to be a nation where we don't express gratitude because it's not politically correct and we're not accountable to anyone but ourselves? Is it going to be in God we trust, or is it going to be in we trust? That is the fundamental debate. That's what needs to be resolved. If we in this country could gather the courage to bring God back into the middle of the conversation, then we could reestablish a starting point for the conversations of what should and shouldn't be. If our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is tied to the fact that there is a God who gave everybody that privilege and that right, and that's the premise by which we started our country, if our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is tied to Creator God, and we remove Creator God from the dialogue and the conversation, then what is the basis in the future for our freedom to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? If the basis of that pursuit is removed from the conversation and removed from political dialogue, what is the new basis? What is the new protection for that? What gives us that right? Here's the thing. Until we come up with a national answer to that question, we have no business moving God out of the conversation, because we don't know where that will take us. But, then again, maybe we do have a clue of where that will take us. Because there are other nations with other histories that never allowed God in the conversation to begin with. And do you know what they're not experiencing today? They're not experiencing the right to life. They're not experiencing the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Because God has informed our conscience as a nation, we have given minorities more freedom and more opportunity. The same with women and children. And that's part of what makes our country great. But what happens if we remove the bases that informed our conscience? What happens if we omit Creator God, the very one to whom we appeal to in the first place in our pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? If we omit Creator God, what happens then with the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence? You've got to replace it with something. My question is this: what is it going to be? And until we have a good answer to that, doesn't it seem dangerous to dismiss God and hope that somehow He will be replaced with something that is equally as compelling and protective and gracious, something that is worth protecting? Now today, I've talked a lot about a problem. Next Sunday, I'm going to talk a lot about the solution. Today, I tried to appeal to your common sense. Next week, we're really going to get into the Word. There's no point of action or application for today's message, but there is a little homework, okay? For those of you who are introverted and like to use the computer, I want you to try to discover the last time a president prayed out loud or published a prayer. For those of you who are extroverts and you just love to be with people, I challenge you to ask somebody this week, hey, do you know what the national motto is? And I'm not talking about somebody from CrossPointe, okay? And if you don't want to do either of those things, I just want you to listen to the news this week and see if you can find anyone who is willing to filter political debates and public discussions through the filter of, hey, we're still accountable to God. And here's the reason I'm asking you to do these things. Has there ever been a time where we needed divine intervention more, but have asked for it less? Have we ever been more reminded of what God needs to do on our behalf? Have we as a nation ever been more divided and afraid to even mention God in conversation? Church, maybe it's time to remind ourselves and others that we are still one nation under God. Maybe it's time to remind ourselves and others that our national motto is, in God we trust. I want to invite you to come back next week. We're going to pick up our series right from here. We're going to talk about some of the solutions to the problems that we've presented today. And we're going to conclude our God